on this Sunday night, fleeing from fire. Hundreds of residents forced to leave a remote Northwest Territories town as thick smoke blankets the area. The only way out, by boat or plane. A first step towards peace.
We are at a war. Moving to peace means acting fast.
The Ukraine Peace Summit ends with an agreement by dozens of countries. Why several key powers did not sign on. A promise to pause. The Israeli military implements a daily break in fighting to allow humanitarian aid into southern Gaza. But will it work?
We don't get to cherry pick the parts of Canada that we like.
Plus the roadmap to reconciliation, the slow path to rewriting the wrongs of Canadian history.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Tracy Tong.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Canada's wildfire season is off to a slower start than last year, but that situation is changing quickly in the bone-dry Northwest Territories. A human-caused wildfire is now on the doorstep of Fort Good Hope after exploding in size from an abandoned campfire. Officials say it has since grown to about 200 hectares and threatening the isolated community. No structures have been damaged yet, but with the blaze showing no signs of slowing down, more firefighters are desperately needed. Fort Good Hope lies in a remote northern area of the Northwest Territories. Nathaniel Dove reports on what's evolving into a very serious situation.
Look at that! Oh my God, it got worse!
Within 24 hours of ignition, the fire reached the edge of town and forced residents to evacuate.
Go look at that fire!
Oh my God.
I could see it! Yesterday I was crying and kind of worried about my house and thought I was going to lose my home.
Thelma Toback fled with her 3 kids.
I saw the fire. It grew quite exponentially from early afternoon when I started to panic started to set in.
Musician Elizabeth Ewan had only just arrived in Fort Good Hope Thursday night. The Northwest Territories town of 500 can only be accessed by plane or boat. Ewan says they nearly lost one option.
They were saying there's a possibility that the fire could reach the road, the access road to the airport.
About half the population was flown out, officials say. Others left by the river.
We're looking at if Northwest Territories has enough support for the evacuees, and our teams are working together to see if any more is actually going to be needed there.
As of Sunday afternoon local time, the fire hadn't reached the town, but the risk remains.
Absolutely, there is a threat that structures could be lost. There always is.
The latest fire danger map shows how dry the area was. The government says they may already know the cause.
The fire did start, as you say, less than 4 kilometers from the community under extreme fire conditions. We do suspect that this fire was person-caused.
Officials say, for now, they're focusing on fighting the flames, using air tankers like these and fire crews on the ground. Officials hope calmer winds and a shift in wind direction will push the fire past the town instead of into it. But there is a larger problem. No rain is forecast for the next 3 days.
And without significant moisture relief, this will continue to be a pretty significant challenge managing this fire.
For now, residents are waiting and hoping to return.
Just not knowing what's going to happen is scary, heartbreaking.
Nathaniel Dove, Global News, Toronto.
Well, there is some good news to report out of Calgary tonight. The mayor saying that residents are making great strides to limit their water use after that massive water main break on June 5th. It dropped to an all-time low on Saturday. The supply of water coming into the city is only about half of what is normally available to Calgarians. It could take over a month for repairs to be complete. The city's mayor is asking for patience.
Let's give the City Emergency Operations team the next few days to collect the information they need. Let's give them time to brainstorm with other professionals to see what can be done to restore our water supply to regular usage.
Some of the replaced pipes are already in Calgary, but more are being delivered from the U.S. next week, and backup plans are being put in place should the repairs take even longer. The path towards peace in Ukraine took a few small steps forward this weekend. Representatives from dozens of countries gathering in Switzerland to draft a roadmap for how to get there, and agreeing on one key matter, which the Ukrainian president emphasized as well.
It's important that all participants of the summit supported Ukraine's territorial integrity, because there will be no lasting peace without territorial integrity.
That's a reference to preserving the pre-war borders of Ukraine, which Russia has been steadily eating away at in the eastern part of the country. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was among the heads of state at the conference, but other major world leaders skipped it, which, as Mackenzie Gray reports, casts some doubt on how fast peace can finally come to Ukraine.
Despite the smiles, it wasn't the meeting that Vladimir Zelensky had hoped for. Joe Biden dispatching the vice president to the Ukrainian peace summit.
I am here in Switzerland to stand with Ukraine and the leaders from around the world in support of a just and lasting peace.
Nearly 100 different countries represented, but the leaders of India, Brazil, and Saudi Arabia didn't show. China not attending at all. Justin Trudeau, the Canadian representative, announcing $52 million for a variety of Ukrainian causes, including support to return thousands of children kidnapped and resettled in Russia.
Everyone can agree that taking kids away from their families, trying to erase their language, their culture, that's an element of genocide. That's pure colonialism.
To help stop that from continuing to happen, Ukraine hoping to push back the Russians with an air defense system that Canada purchased a year and a half ago, but is yet to be delivered or even built.
Of course, we wish the system was already in Ukraine, because we are in a situation when every piece of air defense matters.
Ukraine also supports a French plan to send military trainers into the country, something Trudeau would not say if Canada would join.
And we continue to do training in many different locations. This is something that we will continue to be there for Ukraine.
While the summit participants described the situation as a war, they offered few solutions to solve it, only agreeing on nuclear safety, food security, and the kidnapped children. And even then, important countries like India, Indonesia, and South Africa did not sign the communique. Despite that, Zelensky viewed the summit as a success.
When every step is worked out, the path will be opened for the second peace summit, and thus for ending this war, for a just and lasting peace.
Unsurprisingly, Russia slammed the gathering, saying they'll agree to a ceasefire with Ukraine if they withdraw from annexed territories, Tracy, something the Ukraine and the West rejected quickly.
On the domestic front, Mackenzie, did Trudeau say anything specific about MPs and alleged foreign interference?
Yeah, Tracy, the Prime Minister had a lively scrum with reporters. At one point, he lost his voice and needed to take a quick break.
At least Doug Ford swallowed.
But when it restarted, Justin Trudeau would again not clarify what he thinks is wrong with a report from parliamentarians that says that there are MPs who wittingly participated in foreign interference.
The government has already highlighted there are a number of the conclusions of the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians report that we don't entirely align with.
Trudeau pointed to differing views from NDP leader Jagmeet Singh and Green Party leader Elizabeth May, who've both read the unredacted report, with Singh saying there are traitors in Parliament and May disagreeing, saying she has no issues with anyone in the House of Commons. But what neither did was call into question the report itself, which Trudeau and Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc have now done on 3 separate occasions. Tracy?
All right, Mackenzie Gray reporting for us in Switzerland. Thank you, Mac. Ukrainians in Canada have been watching developments at the Peace Summit closely. And with another plan for the coming months, it's offered hope that global powers are being galvanized to bring an end to the war without giving in to Vladimir Putin. Heidi Petracek speaks to Ukrainian-Canadians on their hopes for the future.
A lot of younger guys I know, most families still back home.
Stanislav Serebykov spends a lot of his time helping fellow Ukrainians who came to the Maritimes fleeing the war. He's been in Halifax since 2014, but has plenty to worry about with friends and family still there.
These 2 years and states dragging their heels, and all their allies dragging their heels in 2023. A lot of people was kind of giving up on hope that big support can come.
But he feels this year is different. For him, the joint communique signed at the Ukraine Peace Summit, though not unanimous, is a sign of what could be the beginning of the war's end.
And bringing all these criminals and Putin into a criminal court.
But officials at the summit in Switzerland acknowledged peace will be a process. Ukraine and the West rejected Vladimir Putin's terms for final resolution issued Friday, which included Ukraine abandoning its intent to join NATO.
The urgency of the moment needs to be understood.
The national group representing Ukrainians in Canada hopes momentum won't be lost now that the summit is over.
No more waivers, no more exceptions, really taking on the Russian war machine. We need Russia to continue to be isolated.
Time is ticking as attacks in Ukraine continue and more soldiers and civilians are killed.
I think between now and November is where we're going to have to see a lot of things put in place.
The outcome of the impending U.S. election, he says, could affect crucial American support, depending on which way the votes swing.
In the event that Donald Trump gets into the White House and suddenly walks away or starts moving energy away from any sort of binding international agreements that the United States has in place.
Volodymyr Zelensky has plans for a second peace summit within months. While in Canada, Justin Trudeau intends to gather foreign ministers for a meeting on Ukraine soon. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
In Ontario, federal ministers announced new measures to curb surging auto thefts around the Greater Toronto Area. The government is deploying a mobile X-ray scanner to the region to detect stolen vehicles inside export shipment containers before they cross the border.
This scanner has arrived and will be, as I said, deployed at various locations in the GTA. We're working on additional, more mobile technology that we hope to have in place also in the next month or two.
The new effort comes as part of Ottawa's National Action Plan combating auto theft, which was announced earlier this year. Car thefts have become a serious problem, especially in Ontario and Quebec. Nearly 800 stolen vehicles were intercepted last year in the Greater Toronto Area. A plan to pause fighting. The Israeli military allowing humanitarian aid into Gaza by implementing a daily window for safe passage. More news in a moment. Israel's armed forces says it's pausing daytime military operations along a 12-kilometer route in southern Gaza to allow more aid in. Delivering aid into Gaza has been severely restricted since the conflict began on October 7th. Relief truck crossings further dropped after Israel took control of the Rafah border crossing into Egypt last month. As Redmond Shannon reports, aid agencies are unsure what this means, but insist the only solution is a permanent ceasefire.
Prayers in Gaza's second largest city, Khan Yunis, for Eid al-Adha, the feast of sacrifice.
There isn't any sign of celebration. There are no sacrificed animals. Instead, we sacrifice ourselves. We sacrifice our own bodies.
On Sunday, Israel said it will make changes to its operations in Gaza to allow people like these to receive more aid, pausing its military assaults between 8 a.m. and 7 p.m., but only along an aid route into the Strip. The corridor leads from Kerem Shalom, the only crossing open in the south of Gaza, 12 kilometres north to the European hospital just south of Khan Yunis. Israel's offensive on the nearby city of Rafah goes on, keeping the Rafah crossing closed. The UN's relief agency in Gaza told Global News it's assessing the impact of the change. Other aid groups say this change won't be enough.
One of the challenges that we had in the past few months, it's the operation environment has been very unsafe, which means that our colleagues and the humanitarian workers and trucks are not able to move freely and safely. And this can only be achieved if there's an immediate and permanent ceasefire.
The Israeli move perhaps a response to international pressure on allowing more aid through, which has been throttled even further since the assault on Rafah began last month. At the same time, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claims he was unaware of the military's corridor plan and reportedly called it unacceptable, possibly in an effort to keep his coalition government together. Far-right nationalist Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir said whoever decided on the new plan is evil and a fool. Just the latest sign of cracks in Netanyahu's government during a war that has no end in sight. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Ahead, the terrifying standoff between Hamburg police and an axe-wielding man. Security forces in southern Russia stormed a pre-trial detention center today, killing several inmates with links to the Islamic State terror group, who had taken 2 staff members hostage. Officials say the prison guards were not injured in the raid, but the hostage takers had been, quote, liquidated. It's believed up to 6 hostage takers were involved. The Islamic State has carried out several attacks on Russian soil in recent years. In Germany, police in Hamburg shot a man wielding a pickaxe and what appeared to be an incendiary device near a sporting event. A warning: the video may be disturbing to some, but we won't show all of it. The suspect survived the shooting. Police saying he tried to ignite a petrol bomb before he was shot. No one else was hurt. The incident happening as Hamburg hosts its first match of the Euro 2024 tournament. The motive is unclear, but police believe it was an isolated case. In the U.S., a gunman behind a mass shooting at a Michigan park yesterday evening has been found dead by suicide. Police were able to identify and track down the 42-year-old suspect to his home, where his body was found. This after he opened fire from his car on a splash pad, injuring 9 people, including 2 brothers, aged 8 and 4. The 8-year-old and their mother are in critical condition. A motive is still being investigated, but police say the gunman suffered from mental health challenges. The road to reconciliation and the importance of getting a full account of Canada's historical wrongs. The news continues on Global National. Princess Kate may have stolen the show yesterday with her first public appearance in months, but today belongs to the dads. The Princess of Wales posted this photo on social media, saying, "We love you, Papa. Happy Father's Day." Prince William posted one of his own to King Charles, saying, "Happy Father's Day, Pa." It was an emotional day for parishioners of Toronto's St. Anne's Anglican Church. They gathered in the parking lot for their first Sunday service since the historic building went up in flames. Today's service was held in the shadow of the church. Its revered dome, once adorned with rare murals painted by members of the Group of 7, was consumed in a fire last weekend. Well, it's been 9 years since the Truth and Reconciliation Commission issued its final report. There were 94 calls to action, but an Indigenous-led research and education center says only 13 have been completed so far. The Yellowhead Institute says 0 new calls to action were implemented last year, and overall progress is so slow it's no longer worth tracking. Melissa Ridgen spoke with stakeholders about what has stalled on the reconciliation journey.
It was a national reckoning, a brutal examination of the decades-long systematic attempt to destroy Indigenous cultures and force assimilation by removing children from their homes and into residential schools. 3 commissioners spent 6 years gathering accounts from parents, survivors, and their children to understand the truth and impacts of this era. Their work culminated with 94 calls to action, a reconciliation roadmap.
I've very often said when newcomers come to Canada, we don't get to cherry pick the parts of Canada that we like. Yes, healthcare or universal education or things like that we take as normal, but so too are the mistakes of our country and the regrets of our country.
Wilson's new book, North of Nowhere, is aimed at those who weren't here for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission or were too young to remember it.
I made promises over and over again to the survivors when they asked us, make sure Canada knows what happened to us, make sure the world knows what happened to us, and I want to leave my book as one more tool that will allow us to remember and to not forget.
But the very government that put reconciliation on the national agenda is itself often under fire for forgetting. Earlier this month, blasted for a lack of follow-through on the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls inquiry.
Regrettably, the report's findings indicate that only 2 of the calls for justice impacting First Nations have been fully implemented over the past 5 years, with the majority showing minimal to no progress.
Douglas Sinclair heads one of a handful of organizations still keeping tabs on that progress.
From an A to an F, what would you feel comfortable giving for a grade?
I'd probably just off the top, I'd probably just say a C. I mean, there'd probably be some areas that would be lower, other places that might be a bit higher.
Under the previous
Indigenous Services Minister Patty Haidu.
Under the leadership of Justin Trudeau, a renewal of commitment to First Nations peoples on things like infrastructure, on water, on child welfare. We've, in terms of settling litigation on claims, on treaty claims, on land claims. Of course, there's a long ways to go, but I am confident that we're on the path.
A path that will continue to be scrutinized for years to come. Melissa Ridgen, Global News, Winnipeg.
And that is Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Tracy Tong. Tonight's Your Canada is the Roseau River in Stewartburn, Manitoba. We love seeing Your Canada. Please keep emailing your photos to viewers@globalnational.com. Thanks for watching. Donna will be back with you tomorrow. Have a great night.